I have a very busy schedule this week. Very busy. Uh, this week is Holy Week for people who are Christian, for the most part, Protestant and Catholic and stuff is Holy Week. So yesterday was Monday, Thursday, and I would have had this video out yesterday, but I had service to go to, and I took my grandfather to service and took him back home, and I had other stuff to do, and I had work. So now this is getting done today. I still have service to go to later, but the chapter was not out yesterday in time for me to do the video, so now it's getting done today. Today is Good Friday, so we'll have that later. And then Sunday is Easter, and I will have my Mirko video out on Sunday. So, I have a busy week. And Kobe seems to be having a very busy day as well. From what we see in the chapter. So this is about chapter 1080 for One Piece, or The Legendary Hero is the title. And we find out some information about Sword. We actually find out a fair bit of information about Sword, but then there's also, well, how much is legitimate information and how much is not legitimate information. So the entire chapter does take place on Hachinosu, but first we have a cover page, which is Hiyori and Kawamatsu making origami swans. Aww. So I like this cover page. When I had heard the description of it first, I was just like, so is it like all grown up currently Hiyori and Kawamatsu, or is it like Hiyori and Kawamatsu from when Kawamatsu was taking care of her during the 20 years? And either one would have been fine with me, because we know that during the 20-year time, or the time skip, or the 20-year time in Onigashima, when Hiyori was kind of on her own, that for the first amount of time she was with Kawamatsu and he was taking care of her and he was doing everything he could to keep her happy and keep her safe and everything. And then of course she left and she ended up finding Denjiro, thankfully. So she was okay, but we know that Kawamatsu very much took his responsibility for Hiyori very seriously. But we also know that now, we saw in the story when they were reunited, after however many years that they're reunited, and he's just like so happy that she's okay and everything, and finds out that, oh, Denjiro's alive, so we're okay, she was taken care of, and all of that. And I like this now. It's just like, okay, they get to relax, they get to have fun. This is something that can very easily take place within the canon of the manga, with them just, having fun now that Kaido is no longer in control and everything. Them just doing that would be fine. I think that would be adorable. Moving on to the meat of the chapter. So, as I said, the whole chapter takes place on Hachinosu. We see nothing that's going on with Egghead or any of the other places right now, but Hachinosu. So basically the whole chapter is basically Sword versus the Blackbeard Pirates. So we see that we find out that Kobe has escaped. He was imprisoned on Hachinosu Island, and he's managed to escape. We find out that Perona is the one that actually freed him, that, she had made her way to Hachinosu trying to find Moria after she found out that he was alive. And she's there, and she like made a deal with, Kobe, that it's just like, hey, if I release you, you will help, will you help me, get to Master Moria so I can save him and everything. Which, slight side note, several weeks ago I had the video where I talked about father-daughter bonds in One Piece. I specifically didn't put Moria and Perona there because I don't remember if we ever find out how old Perona was when she joined the Thriller Bark Pirates. I don't remember. I know she's been there for a while, but I could not remember if we got the exact answer at any point in time. But she also was okay with like abandoning him, but then she's also exceedingly happy when she finds out that Moria is alive. So I don't know where I fall on that answer, but she's trying to help him now and everything. So Kobe has been freed along with a whole bunch of other, we find out that there are potential slaves and stuff like that the Blackbeard Pirates have been capturing, and that they're ready to probably sell somewhere along the line. along with getting Kobe's bounty from the Cross Guild and such. And we see that a bunch of the lower ranked, the rabble of the Blackbeard pirates are running around trying to catch Kobe and everything, get his bounty, because it's a 5-star bounty, because he's, the hero Kobe and everything, because of the Rocky Port incident. So we see that. And Kobe is more trying to act as a distraction so the other prisoners can get away, which very much falls in line with Kobe's attitude anyway. He's like, okay, I'm going to go this way and I'm going to distract them, and you guys go and try to escape and everything. And we see a lot of different people there. I think we see like a long arm person and a long neck, snake neck person. I think we see a mink in the background. There's a couple of other ones that we see. So there's like a good amount there of ones who have probably not had a good amount of time, a good time with being around Blackbeard. So we see that. We also find out that the devil fruits for several of the Blackbeard pirates. For Avala Pizarro, we find out that he has the Shima Shima no Mi, or the Island devil fruit. This is very similar to Pika's devil fruit in the fact that Pika's is specifically with stone, where he can merge with stone and then move around and manipulate stuff within the stone. Avala Pizarro seems to be able to do this with an island. So we see his face come out of the front of the Hachinosu, the giant skull that's there. And we even see him moving it at times. It looks like it opens its mouth and yawns and then closes it as it's talking. And so we see that. We also see him, I think he comes up through the floorboards or something like that within the hideout. So again, we don't know where the exact level, how far this extends. Okay, how big of an island could he control? That type of thing. Again, it also comes down to how much practice they have with it and how long they've, how much they've mastered with it and everything. Pika had a fair amount of time to train with his devil fruit, so him being able to do what he did on Dressrosa is not surprising. But this does mean that if, when the Straw Hats end up fighting against the Blackbeard pirates at whatever point in time that happens, Zoro at least has a basic idea of how to fight an enemy that can work this way, because he already fought Pika, so he knows how this works. And he can probably tell whichever other Straw Hat has to fight against Pizarro that it's just okay, so this is how, or at least this is how it worked with the rock guy with this weird voice that I had to fight back on Dressrosa, so try this. So he has that. And my Disney brain moment that popped into my head when I was hearing about this in the chapter and kind of seeing it was, it made me think of Te Fiti from Moana, who is the island goddess. And the fact that she can create and, adjust islands to her whim to a degree. So that just kind of made me think of that. Although Te Fiti is a much more benevolent person than Avala Pizarro seems to be. And then we also find out that Vasco Shot has a devil fruit. Again, them having devil fruits doesn't really surprise anybody. Vasco Shot has the Gabu Gabu no Mi, or the Liquor Liquor, or the Glug Glug devil fruit. Also, Avala Pizarro's nose seems to be quite a bit redder in this chapter, so maybe if he uses his devil fruit, he gets more drunk. But he's already a drunk, so it probably doesn't make much of a difference. He seems to be able to produce liquor and can control it, so possibly similar to, well, I was trying to think if there's any other devil fruits that we've seen that produce a liquid, but I don't think he's a Logia, because we don't actually see him turn into the liquid. He just can produce it, because we see him form a bubble of it and then fly off on it. Also, Avala Pizarro does not want to cause a bunch of damage on the island because they just finished fixing the Rocky Port and they don't want Teach to get mad. Whereas Vasco Shot is perfectly fine with burning down the whole town. And then Avala Pizarro's but that's still going to make Teach mad, you idiot. So, differing opinions there. Again, it's more they just don't want to make, Blackbeard angry. But I was trying to think if there was, because I wasn't coming up with any devil fruits that produce a liquid. The closest one that I had was like the wax devil fruit that Galdino has. And I'm like, well, it does produce it produces a substance, but there's a devil fruit later on in this that kind of works a little bit better for a comparison there. But I was like, well, I'm not really coming up with anything for that. Also, I wanted to point out that recently in the news, in regards to something, in regards to liquor, very recently there was a court case involving Jack Daniels. They were suing a company that makes dog toys because the company made a dog toy that looks like the Jack Daniels bottle, but it's called Bad Spaniels instead. And I'm like, really? Really? Who decided to put this lawsuit out there? It's funny, but why? So I wanted to point that out. I thought that was funny. Avala Pizarro may like Jack Daniels, or not Avala Pizarro. Vasco Shot may like Jack Daniels. I don't know. We also see San Juan Wolf in this chapter, but he's not doing anything. He's just sleeping. But we do get the name of his devil fruit, the Decanomi, or the enlarge fruit. One of the original translations I saw was the inflation fruit. And I'm like, okay, well, now we know who to blame for all of the prices going up. So that helps. For eggs costing so much and everything else. So we'll blame San Juan Wolf, but he's just like asleep off to the side. Although we do at least now get to see that a lot of them at least have like new clothes, because like I don't remember if we saw, because Vasco Shot was on Amazon Lily when Blackbeard was there, and when he got Kobe, but I was trying to remember if we really saw that much of like what Vasco Shot's new outfit looked like, because I was just like, I don't know if we'd seen his new outfit yet. I know we hadn't seen San Juan Wolf yet and such. Also, Shiryu is on Hachinosu. Him and Avala Pizarro are kind of like talking during this time frame, just to kind of, determine whether or not they need to go after Kobe. Avala Pizarro doesn't want to, because he doesn't want to cause more damage on the island to make Teach mad, and they'll just let the rest of the rabble that are part of their crew just go and try to catch Kobe in that regard. So they can still hand him into the Cross Guild. Don't know how Boogie's going to pay for that, but sure. Then we get this flashback where we find out that it's Blackbeard and Kobe talking to each other. This is probably like within like a couple of days after he captured Kobe and took him back to Hachinosu. We see Blackbeard, we see Kuzan, I think we see Doc Q and maybe Lafitte in the background. I'm not remember, but like Kobe is on the ground and chained. And Blackbeard reveals that he's going to use Kobe as a bargaining chip to try to get the world government to legitimize Hachinosu as make it an official kingdom with Teach as the ruler. And we've seen this done before, or something very similar to it, when Doflamingo, of course, captured, the heavenly tribute for the celestial dragons and used that as leverage for them to make him I was about to say to make him a Tenryubito, but that's wrong. To make him a Shishibukai, to make him a warlord. So there's that. We've seen that done before, and then Doflamingo probably also used a very similar thing when he, was allowed to stay in control of Dressrosa after he took it over. Now, also, I will point out, we also saw something somewhat similar to this in regards to Wapol. So we know that during the time frame that after Wapol was defeated by Luffy, he got, ended up landing somewhere. I think he was in the West Blue or something like that, is where he ended up, the evil Black Drum Kingdom, whatever it's called. And he got that kingdom to the point where it was going to, where it was able to join the world government. Now, either that means Wapol is the main reason for that because of his Wapol medal and his company and everything like that, or if it was already one and he just, made it better. We know that Drum Island was already a part of the world government when Dalton became king after they ousted Wapol and everything. So there's that. But, we don't know exactly if that was already there. Also, I mean, if Blackbeard did accomplish this, which he probably won't, but if he did accomplish this, then, it's kind of similar to something that happens with Big Mom, because Big Mom is like, she's the queen of Totland, and Totland is this very powerful entity, or was this very powerful entity in regards to, being a kingdom and the territory of a Yonko. But it was not an official government. She is a queen, the same way that, Cobra was a king, but it's not quite the same in the fact that, like, Alabasta is a legitimate kingdom that is recognized by the world government, whereas Totland is not. And Blackbeard is trying to get that to the point where he can actually, be, a legitimate member of the world government, because then he can probably try to use that as a way of getting himself to be like a new version of the Shishibukai. So we'll see about that. Koby basically says that that's not going to work because Koby is actually a member of SWORD. And that means that the world government isn't going to do anything about him. And we see Kuzan, and he actually seems to, he's, watching this whole exchange, and we actually see, a little exclamation point pop up above his head, and he actually ends up explaining what SWORD is. He explains that SWORD is a faction among the Marines of people who decided that they were going to hand in their Marine card, and that way they would be able to still go up against and fight Yonko without having to have, permission from, the higher-ups of the Marines or the world government or the Gorosei or whatever. And there would be no repercussions on the Navy because they could just disavow them. Now, I'm leaning toward this being a lie or an exaggeration of some part because of the fact that we've seen other SWORD members still being welcome in the Marines, and the fact that we've seen that Koby and Helmeppo and Hibari and Prince Groose and the other ones that we're going to see in the chapter are still welcomed by the Marines to a degree. But then again, this is a secret faction among the Marines. So, Drake went off on his own and formed his pirate crew and did all of that as part of his mission as part of SWORD. And if you want to go with what people think, Garp and Sengoku might be part of SWORD, given a character we're going to be introduced to in a moment. Suru might be part of SWORD, which would just be a whole big blow to the Navy with the fact that those were their three golden children for a while, with, Sengoku literally be able to turning into a giant golden Buddha, and stuff. But, so there's that. So Koby's like, well, you're not going to be able to negotiate with them because of the fact that I'm SWORD. And Blackbeard's like, well, that doesn't matter. You're the hero of the Marines. To the public, you are this face. You're the person that protected them and everything like that with what happened at Rocky Port and all of that. Also, Koby does have one of the distinguishments of being one of the few Marines who actually stand up to Akainu. Yes, it almost got Koby killed if Shanks hadn't shown up, but he still has that distinction. So good on that. And it's, it would be if they allowed Koby to still be destroyed, to be killed or whatever by Blackbeard, then that would just be, a black eye on the face of the world government. And the fact that how popular Koby is to, the rest of, the world in that regard, to the people of the world. So there's that. Again, this is where we get that Perona is the one that tried to, that freed Koby and everything. We don't see Moria in this chapter at all. But at least this means that he's most likely alive. Because if he was dead, then either he would be out there, having someone manipulate his corpse with their own devil fruit power. So at this point in time, it's basically been confirmed that all of the different 10 Titanic captains that we've been introduced to so far have devil fruit powers. So I don't know who they would give Moria's power to. I guess there's someone else on the crew that they could decide to give the devil fruit power to if Kuzan is not the 10th Titanic captain, and if there's one more that we don't know about, because all the other ones that we know about have a devil fruit power now, or they had one to begin with when we first introduced to them, or they've gained one in the 2 years. So unless Blackbeard wants to have a third devil fruit, hopefully he does not show up during this battle and go room, because that would just make so many people go Ooh, myself included. I like Law. I wasn't all that overly emotional about losing Kid. I was more sad about the fact that Killer is no longer technically part of the story. Um, but Kid, I was just like, I can take him or leave him. I prefer Killer anyway. Um, he's at least reasonable to a degree. He's reasonable for a man whose name is, you know, Massacre Machine Killer, Massacre Soldier Killer, whatever it is. But in that regard, we see Kobe running around more and trying to distract, the rest of the Blackbeard pirates that are there, the really lower ranks and stuff like that, the rabble of the crew, and such. And then we get introduced to a bunch of different members of Sword. Or at the very least get some more of what they can do in the two that we've met already. So first off, as the people are running around, they think they see one of the buildings wobble. And they're like, did that building move? No, you're just imagining it. And then they see like a woman standing there whipping the building and like scolding it. And they're like, is she whipping a building? Is she scolding it? And then the buildings move. So we are introduced to Rear Admiral Kujaku, which I think means peacock. I think is what I saw in one of the translations that said it means peacock. And she has the Muchi Muchi no Mi, or the Whip Whip fruit. Sadie, I found your devil fruit. And so what we've seen of what her power can do means that she can control anything that she whips, that she strikes with her whip. We don't know the upper limits of this. Does it only apply to inanimate objects? Like, can she, well, obviously she can whip buildings and they move. Is there like a size that it comes up to that she can whip? Like if you tried to whip the red line, would it move? Probably not. Otherwise, that would save a lot of problems. That would help things a lot. Probably has like a size limit, and probably also has like a distance limit of like how far away she can be before they no longer, obey her and just stop moving. Does it work on inanimate objects, or does it work on, living objects? Like, does it work on people or animals and stuff like that? We'll probably find out later on more of what the upper limits of what this devil fruit can do, but we have that. And she is stated to be Suru's granddaughter. So the great advisor, Suru's granddaughter. So, hey, Garp, out of all of you and your two best friends, one of them at least has one grandkid that's in the Marines, and then Sengoku had Roshinate, and I thought I saw somewhere that he also, like, partially raised Drake or something like that in the Marines. So Garp couldn't even get one grandkid in the Marines. So sorry, Garp. So she's Suru's granddaughter, and she does not seem to have the same hair color that her grandmother did when her grandmother was young, because Suru seemed to have like very bluish or dark black hair when she was young. From what we've seen. But it also looks like she's blonde, possibly. Which, I mean, I was trying to think, we don't really have that many blonde, just straight up blonde characters in One Piece. There's not that many blonde female characters. We have like Sanji and stuff, but we don't have that many just straight up blonde female characters. They're all different random hair colors at times as well, which I don't have a problem with, but it's just, it's a different thing that makes them stand out in that regard. And she kind of looks like she's blonde, and she uses a whip, and she's an anime girl in a shonen manga. My mind went to Lucy from Fairy Tail, okay? I like Fairy Tail, wearing a Fairy Tail t-shirt. What can I say? It made me think of Lucy. However you want to go with that. And Lucy does use a whip when she fights. That's one of her weapons beyond her star keys. and the powers that she gains from using those. So there's that. And then we also, Kujaku seems to have a little bit of a sadistic personality, or at the very least a flirtatious personality, because she like kind of flirts with the two pirates that are there. She's like, well, I mean, it could have been worse. You're not that bad looking. I'm like, okay, lady. That. We also see Koby continuously running around. We also end up seeing Hibari, because Koby gets trapped within this giant group of Marines, and then not Marines, of pirates, and then they all try to like fire their rifles, and then just flowers pop out. And then we see Hibari, who is apparently a very skilled sniper, and she's up on one of the roofs, and she is using this Vegapunk gun that's like a flower gun or something like that, that she can use to, I guess, turn people's gunpowder into flowers. I don't know if it sends out like some type of a beam, or if Hibari managed to somehow like switch out everybody's gunpowder for this stuff, or if it's just like, I don't know. But this is a callback to one of the cover page stories that we got with Vegapunk, where we saw him make, like the gunpowder that was flowers and stuff like that. That was one of the reasons he got like the Ebel Peace Prize or whatever. So that's a callback to that, which I like. Again, I still kind of see this as a reference to like poppies and stuff like that ended up growing and are representations of like veterans in World War I and World War II and stuff like that, and just veterans in general because of that. But she also has a little bit of, I don't know if it's a yandere or a tsundere or whatever it is. She's like, I'm not here to save you. I just happened, I was out for lunch and I happened to be in the area and all that stuff. So we get to see her kind of have a little bit of a nice moment there. And then we see several of the other pirates fighting against what appear to be some of the other Marines that we saw that were part of Prince Gruse's set. Kujuku was one of them as well. She was like one of the lady that we saw off to the side when we saw Prince Gruse, when Helmeppo and Hibari were trying to convince them to help. Which basically just implied they were from Sword anyway, but now we have names for at least Kujuku, whatever it is. And we see one of the other grunt Marines literally get their head sliced off, and then they just blorp on the ground, and then they just blorp back together. And everybody is just like, okay, what the heck just happened? And then we look up on the roof, and we see Prince Gruse is there, and he has a devil fruit that is called the Gunyo Gunyo no Mi, or the Clay devil fruit. And I may have found a new devil fruit that I really wouldn't mind having. Because there's a couple that I wouldn't mind having, and I think I just found another one because, and I am going to go into a moment about the differences between clay and mud in a moment, because there is a difference, and it is an important one in this regard. So he seems to be able to, it's similar to the wax fruit that Galdino has. This is where that comparison comes in, and the fact that he can produce a substance, and he can mold it and shape it, and it can move. Because Galdino's wax creations, to a degree, can move to some degree in how he manipulates them, particularly when he's using his power along with, Miss Golden Week, and she paints them and stuff, so it makes it harder for you to tell the difference and everything. But Prince Gruse can actually make them, and then he seems to have a skill. One of his powers seems to be making them into a golem, and then he uses those golems, whether they're his actual men, and then like he just makes them look like Marines to throw people off, and then they can just have different, colors, and he can make them whatever, appearance he wants them to be, or if they're just based on his actual men that he has, so it's just like there's like more of them they're fighting. Either one is perfectly fine in my book, but he makes them golems, and I wanted to slightly explain what golems are. A golem is an animated anthropomorphic being in Jewish folklore, which is entirely created from inanimate matter, usually clay or mud. And the most famous golem narrative involves, I'm going to butcher the guy's name, I apologize, Judah Lo Ben Bezalel. He was a late 16th century rabbi in Prague, and throughout a whole lot of European history and most history, Jews, of course, were very suppressed and everything like that. So the golem was a way to help like protect them and stuff like that. And according to Moment magazine, the golem is a highly malleable metaphor with seemingly limitless symbolism. It can be a victim or a villain, man or woman, or something both, or sometimes both. Over the centuries, it has been used to connote war, community, isolation, hope, and despair. I found that interesting when I was looking that up. I've seen other medias use golems before, where they make a thing out of clay and then they imbue it with power and then they use it to fight on their behalf. I'm pretty sure there's definitely been other manga and other animes that have used this trope before. Well, I wouldn't really call it a trope, but it is kind of like something that you can use, multiple times and stuff like that and such. And Prince Gru seems to be able to create them rather easily. He also makes like a little tiny version of himself, which is just kind of adorable. And such. So we see that. And in regards to the differences between this and the swamp fruit. So there's the swamp devil fruit that, of course, that Caribou has. And that is a logia. And while, yes, he can produce mud in regards to it being like a swamp, in regards to how we've seen him use his power, it's not the same in the fact that I don't think that he can actually like mold the mud into different stuff. And he can't, he can like control like how far out it goes to a degree, and then like, glorp away whatever he needs. And the fact that he tried to kidnap the mermaids and Shirahoshi and stuff like that before he was stopped. But there's a difference there with mud and clay. Mud is basically just any amount of mixture of water and soil and dirt, made wet. Clay is an actual substance that contains different minerals of like rock and stuff like that is used to mold things. And yes, mud to a degree can be used for molding as well. Clay is much more adept for that. And this is coming from someone who adored being in pottery class when I was in middle school and in high school. I loved being in pottery class, and I made different vases and stuff like that. Also just working with other clay in general and such. So yeah, I would, if I could, this would be one of the devil fruits that would be on my list of something that I would want, because you can use it to make a large amount of different things. You can make weapons out of it, and then of course you can use the weapons to, shift the weapon its size as needed, depending on stuff. You can make the golems. You can probably do a whole bunch of other stuff with it, depending on stuff. You might be able to control like the hardness of like how hard the clay gets if you've had enough practice with it, and control its malleability and everything like that. So that I found another devil fruit I want. And then we get to the end of the chapter, where we have a marine ship launched into the air, very similar to the way the Kuda burst happens with, the Sunny and stuff for when it flies. Launched into the air over Hachinosu. We know that a whole bunch of the different riffraff for the Blackbeard pirates have been like gathered in the middle of town from, Hibari getting them there, and from the buildings moving in to trap them in the center of town. And on the ship, we find out that Toshigi and Helmeppo are on the ship, as is Garp. And Garp just jumps off the ship. Everybody's just like, why is the marine ship flying? This is not right. And Koby is actually having this thought where it's like, once he realizes that the members of SWORD are there, he's like, oh my god, they came to save me. And he's like, wait, no, why are they here? They should not be here. This is not good. And he scolds himself for thinking that he's important enough for them to want to save. And he's just like, wait, why are they even here? Because he doesn't think he's worth saving. Which just goes back on Koby's self-esteem issues, which he's gotten better at, but he's definitely needs to work on them a bit. But off the ship jumps Garp, and he hockeys up his fist, because, Garp the fist, and smashes it into you know, the air, and just probably a giant shockwave happens. And I saw something where it could be confirming that Garp has Conqueror's Haki, which if Garp has Conqueror's Haki, that is not going to surprise anybody in the slightest. Just, another member of the monkey family has Conqueror's Haki. It's the same thing as like if Dragon has Conqueror's Haki, nobody is going to be surprised by this. Garp having Conqueror's Haki, being able to use like advanced, Ryuo or that type of stuff, considering how long Garp is trained and the fact that he fought against, against Roger and Whitebeard multiple times. Him having those abilities is not going to surprise anybody in the slightest, in that regard. So yeah, if Garp is revealed to have Conqueror's Haki, that's not going to surprise anybody. The fact that Tashigi is here isn't exceedingly surprising either, given the fact that she was on, what was it, G7 or whatever the base was that they were at with Doll and everything, because I think it's like Doll is on her way to Egghead to deal with what's going on there, and Tashigi kind of, I think she knows Garp or Kobe and Helmeppo and everything, or at the very least there was like a cover page at some point that like showed the three of them together, and then, well, I mean, like, we see them interact in Stampede, but again, that's not canon. But, like, Tashigi knowing them is not that big of a surprise. Or at least knowing who they are. She probably at least knows who Kobe is and probably has met them a few times. So, she probably wants to, help and stuff like that. Also, she knows Garp. So, those types of things is not surprising if Tashigi is there. We don't know where Smoker is yet, so that's still up for debate. Maybe he went off to Egghead because, like, he maybe wants to find out what's going on with, like, oh, why is Luffy here? Why is Straw Hat attacking Egghead? And, why are the government trying to go after, Vegapunk and everything like that? He's a good guy. He helped these kids, type of a thing, We'll see how that goes since we haven't seen Smoker yet. But, Garp is also just like, I'm not letting you do this because Kobe is, the future of the Marines. A lot of us as the fan base kind of see Kobe as this representation of what can be a better version of the Marines. Kobe and Tashigi and Helmeppo and Smoker and, Fujitora as like the ones that can like lead the Marines into the future and make them better. So, the kind of the fan base kind of sees him that way, and Garp kind of seems to be that way as well. And he's also, he's my precious apprentice is like one of the other versions of it that I've seen. It's like Garp cares about Helmeppo and Kobe. That's not a surprise. If he didn't care about them, he wouldn't have tried to go after Kobe in the first place in this regard. He's watched them grow as students and as Marines since Shellstown and everything, and since what happened in their cover story and everything. So we've seen that. He just like fits into the island, which is just like, okay, yeah, okay, Garp, you're good, have fun. And Kobe is still befuddled by why this is happening in the first place. Also, I do chalk some of like Garp's reaction up to kind of also a response to the fact that when it came to Ace, Garp wasn't able to actually help save Ace with what happened at Marineford, that he still blames himself for that because he didn't do enough to try to save Ace, where he's just like, you were faced with this dilemma once before in what happened at Marineford, and you chose your duty, which is admirable, but Ace was your grandson, and you know the type of person Ace was. And, yeah, he let Luffy basically punch him aside and everything like that, but still, there's that whole, dilemma that goes into that with Garp and everything. And I think, over the last 2 years and everything like that, stuff's been eaten away at him for that. Also, Garp getting some revenge on Blackbeard again for the fact that Blackbeard is the one that brought Ace in. and subsequently, you know, to a degree led to certain things happening with Ace, with him dying and everything. You know, Kirk getting some good old fashioned revenge in that regard is not a surprise. Being wanting to do that. Um, Also, you know, we have Helmeppo here and everything, and we've seen, you know, Helmeppo's growth throughout the course of the series as well. So there's that. Um, as I said, we've got introduced to a couple of other members, and we'll have to find out in regards to like with Prince Groose, in regards to like with his different, you know, his, you know, golems. Are they his actual men? Like, are they the ones that are around him all the time? Or are they just like copies of his men that he then just like multiplies? How many of them can he make at any given time and still control? How far away can they get? How big could the golem be? That type of a thing. Same thing with, you know, Kajuku's, you know, with Devil Fruit. Like, how much does that come into the context of, like, you know, how far are the limits on that? And I would like an explanation as to how Hibari's flower gun works. I would like an explanation of that. That would be nice too. But that's what we have here. I didn't really have too much else to add for this. And I think next week they're on break, so we'll see what Perona's up to possibly the next time we get back into this. So that's what we have. I thank you for watching, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. And for those of you that celebrated, I hope you have a happy Easter. And for those of you who don't, candy. Yeah, just enjoy the candy and the colorful things. And I'll be back on Sunday with a video about Mirko. So, bye.